And we're live, coming to you from the beautiful islands of the Philippines. And buddy here, Mitch, coming to us from Kentucky,
That's right. The bluegrass
Louisville.
state over y'all's.
How's it going, brother?
It is going very well, brother. Thank you again. And super excited to be here on the second day to share some field notes from the recently concluded CFESA Region 2 meeting.
Yes, sir. So yesterday we went over, cybersecurity, and we did a deep dive on some of the, usual cases and ransomware and all the different types of attacks, and some tips from Michael, which was super, super helpful. And today we'll be going over the global supply chain updates and notes that you've gathered from the second panel, was it?
That's correct. Yeah, there was a second panel, and the global supply chain is actually something that has been plaguing the field services industries
Mm,
pretty much because again,
yeah,
as we
since the
know,
pandemic.
our field service sector, they rely on two things: providing the services and selling the parts, and they can't resolve the customer's issue if they don't have the correct parts for it. So
Right.
they've
And for
been plagued by
installations,
it.
it's key, right? Getting the equipment from
Yeah.
abroad, right?
Yeah, when
Yep.
when and yeah, especially with manufacturing located in various locations, the supply chain was something that was seamless prior to the pandemic, and it even
Mm,
came before the pandemic. There was even a shock even before that. The pandemic
mm,
just kind of exacerbated it. I
mm.
remember, if you remember that there was that evergreen ship that blocked the Suez Canal. That was one
Yeah.
contributor to that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there was also the time where the Los Angeles ports were just so clogged.
Right.
This was like,
With a lot of ships.
yeah,
Yep.
with a lot of ships lined
And
up. So
cargo. Yeah.
it has produced a pretty,
Significant. Yeah.
significant hit. Yeah, and a bad
Yep.
experience for the customers out there who need those parts.
And yet with the pandemic, right, we're still feeling the impact, even though it's been, travel time and ETAs have been cut down drastically
Yeah.
this year. But still, it's to for some of the less common parts. It's sometimes it's really hard to stock them. And yeah, it's especially if you're in a vertical like commercial food equipment,
Oh
where you
yeah.
have tens of thousands of equipment and hundreds of thousands of SKUs and parts, right? It gets really complicated. So who was on the panel for this session, Mitch?
Oh yeah, we went straight to the experts on the panel. So
Okay,
first and foremost, we were hosted again by Partstown. So shout out
shout
to
out to
Partstown,
Partstown.
all of our good friends over there. Maria, Liz, Jen, who was the marketing director who hosted the event. It was like
Mm,
seamless and flawless. Chuck, who was also over there and hosted all of the proceedings and all
yep.
of that for CFESA. And so Partstown being the experts again, parts that are in supply and all that. So we had Doug Buis, who was the
Mm,
VP of
right,
inventory and analytics at Partstown. So he was on the
right.
panel. We have Joe Cunningham, who was the fleet strategy manager at Enterprise Rent a
Okay,
Car, and that's also another vital component. Everybody thinks like field service is all about you know parts and everything, but you can't go to the field if you don't
without a
have the
car.
transportation.
Exactly.
And yeah, the backlog on those transit vans are just pretty bad as far as that's
Mm,
concerned. We also had Michael Stevens, who's the product and business development manager over at
mm,
Hobart Food Equipment
right.
and
Hobart.
Services, over up
Right.
in Dayton, Ohio. Shout out to our Ohio friends north of
Hey.
Kentucky. And we had Tom Vanderbosch. So Tom Vanderbosch was previously with a Well Built Kitchen Care group, but some pretty big news that was announced over at the CFESA Region 2 meeting. He recently accepted a role as president over at Scotsman. So
Wow. Scotsman.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Big deal.
it was a pretty hefty panel that we had over there.
Cool. So maybe, Mitch, maybe, I know yesterday we kind of went a little bit over time, then we wanted, can you give us, maybe let's keep this session short
Sure.
and sweet, and maybe give us like some of your top key takeaway from each of the panelists. Like, let's start with Dog. Any takeaways from Dog?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, as you said, people like us who love to talk a lot struggle with keeping things short. So I will do my best. So Doug was talking about how the global supply chain in a way has improved. It's
Mm,
not fully normal. It's not like, you order something and then you can expect it to arrive in a timely fashion, like in the two week period or 1 week to get it across the Pacific Ocean. But the predictability has improved. So it's
right,
gone from, your part is delayed and we have no idea when it's going to arrive,
right.
from your part is delayed, but it will arrive on X date.
At least
It'll
there's an
arrive on.
ETA there.
Yeah, there is an
'Cause
ETA
the
on it.
customer is always calling. When are you coming?
Yeah,
When is the part it's going to be here?
exactly.
And just,
They're like,
yeah,
are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Like
yeah.
when you're in a road trip and your kids are like bugging you for like, right?
I
Yeah.
mean,
So
I kind of understand, right? Because you've got some really critical machines, especially if you're talking, refrigeration or,
oh yeah.
uh, yeah, and it's like, yeah, it's critical that you get these machines back up and running, and every day these machines are not up, it's costing you money.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
the operator money.
your
Yeah,
capacity is diminished.
you can't offer the full menu.
You can't operate the
Uh,
full menu. You can't
you
order
can't
as many
operate your
food items.
facility.
Yeah, it will
Yeah,
require extra trips to get
absolutely.
the food and everything out there. Or that's for the cold equipment. If it's for burners, then again, you have to tell your end customers, your guests at your restaurants that, oh, you gotta wait a
No
little
fries.
longer for your paella.
Imagine a
It's gonna.
burger without fries.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Your tacos are gonna take much longer, or we're out of stock of this and that. So, and again,
Yeah.
it all goes downhill if it's negative customer experience for our guests at the restaurant. The food, the restaurateurs and chains are unhappy, and then they blame the food equipment
Yep.
services companies
There's
and
a
food
domino
equipment
effect.
service. Yeah, it is a domino effect that we're all reeling and
Yeah. So
feeling.
that's a good takeaway. Kind of the status, the current state of
Yeah,
global supply chain. We went from lack of predictability and uncertainty around the date to now it's like, okay, we know that there may still be delays, but at least we know it's going to be available at some point, at some date.
yeah.
So there's a level of predictability. So that's the state of global supply chain. So what insights did you pick up from Michael?
So Michael, over at Hobart, he talked about the flexibility and how we needed to adapt to the whole situation. So like for him, what he did is that he's got a supplier
Mm,
that he has relied on for the longest time, and now because of the unpredictability prior to Doug saying that it's sort of normalized, he has had to scrounge around and gotten resourceful to open up new avenues with different suppliers, whether it's in his
mm,
county or in his city or in the state or anything to that extent.
mm,
And so he's opened those new relationships up. Some of them may have come because if you go with a single supplier, normally the advantage is you
yeah,
get a price break, right? Usually,
right.
so the repercussion of that is that he's sort of traded timeliness for a slightly
And
higher
availability.
cost. Yeah,
Right.
for the availability, right? So yeah, so he's done that. He's opened up those avenues. He's also used different ways of getting the parts over to technicians. So one of the best practices that he shared was he uses a service called Roadie, which is a UPS company. It's kind of
Okay.
like the Uber for delivering parts. It's like in the Philippines, it's like for Grab or Lala Move
Right.
or something like that, right? So
Nice.
so essentially what he does is like us to save time, he sends a technician over to a
And Rody, how
restaurant.
do you spell Rody?
Roadie. So
Nice.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah,
Rody.
so
Yeah.
what he does is save time. He doesn't need to wait for the part to arrive at the depot or at his office and then send the technician out. So what he does is like if he already sourced it, he says, "Yeah, we'll send the technician over to your place," and sends Rody over there, and then they sort of
Boom. They
diverge and meet.
converge.
Boom. Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So yeah,
I
that's
love it.
helped the customer experience. It's helped the availability of parts,
I
and
love it.
it's helped them
So
become more
the
flexible. So
takeaway is diversify your portfolio
yes,
for procuring parts, establish direct connection and relationship with different suppliers and part suppliers,
yeah,
um, and then you leverage door-to-door shipping services like Roadie
Rhodia,
to kind of reduce that ETA and meet the technician where they are and get them the parts on site.
correct. That's
I
right.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, what other takeaways did you pick up?
Yeah, one other key lesson that all of them kind of talked about, and was that better planning and contingencies would allow us to prevent a shock to the system. Again, for the
Mm,
longest time, to a certain degree, there was a sense of complacency prior to the pandemic, right? Where everybody was like, oh, yeah, the global supply chain is seamless, like shipping will, if we can't
yeah,
get the
we took
ships
things
across
for
the
granted.
Pacific, we'll do it somewhere else or anything like that. But when all of a sudden, it wasn't an issue of the transportation logistics, but it was more of an issue with the manufacturer can no longer produce it because they shut
Mm,
down. Right, there was COVID restrictions, like in China, where people were like locked up in their apartments because of COVID restrictions and all of that.
mm,
So that's better planning is key, and if that will mean carrying a little more inventory, then that's something that we need to account for. Again,
mm,
inventory usually means more cost, right? But that's something that
mm,
we may need to account for, because the cost of not having availability of parts has been much greater as well. And then working with, they were also like what you said, building your relationships with, or diversifying your portfolio will enable you to do
mm.
that as well. So
I love it. And any talk about? I mean, you had some folks there who are big on data and analytics.
yeah.
Any takeaways from how to leverage technology or data in any way?
Well, actually, that was kind of like the idea that kind of lit up in my head, being the transformation guy, and
Yeah.
essentially like all about this data analytics. And we have a big set of data points that
Mm,
we can draw from. Your customer base, all of the equipment that they have,
mm.
whether hot or cold, and these models. And then we also have the data set of knowing how these models have, like,
Like what
what
parts are
part.
required for what
Right,
breakdowns and yeah.
at certain points, a particular part is going to break down. Like, of a gasket seal on a particular refrigerator is due to break down in, like, an estimated
Or
6.2
warehouse. Yeah.
years. Then if we have all of those lined up and we say, oh, we're approaching, 82% of our customers have this model of refrigerator. And they have, their refrigerators are 5 years old already. So there is a high likelihood that out of those 82%, 67% will
Will
break
fail.
down.
Yep.
So let's order these parts already ahead of
And stock
time.
them.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
I love
even
that.
going further and say, and tell the customer that, yeah, Mr. Customer, the refrigerator that you have, I just want to proactively do a checkup on it or whatever. And I mean, it's going to be better to do preventive rather than reactive at
Or
that
more
point.
predictive
And
in
predictive,
this
yeah.
case.
In
And
this
that's
case, yeah.
what we what falls under service innovation. When we talk about service experience, you've got three components to a great to a five-star service experience. You've got operational excellence, your inside outlook, right? It's your internal procedure,
Yep.
processes, workflows. You've got the experience design. It's the orchestration of the customer touch points with the company and its employees. And then you've got service innovation, using technology to introduce new services or enhance your existing services,
Right.
tech-enabled services. And to your point, how can we leverage AI and machine learning
Yeah.
to make use of all that data that's sitting inside of our ERPs? Because data is the new currency,
That's
and it's
absolutely
high
right.
time for us, especially in commercial food equipment and HVAC verticals, to start adopting a lot of the technology. And you don't have to create it yourself, right? Like there are tools like XOI or
Yeah.
Neuron 7 out there that's commercially available. pretty much for everyone.
Yeah,
Yes,
pretty much.
you don't have full control of the software and the features and whatnot, but it's accessible nowadays. So do investigate these tools and consider using them in your business to enable your customer and provide a whole new level of service that they would appreciate, and keep calling you back, because that's what differentiating you. Not It's not about just having technicians available anymore. It's about what happens before the technician comes out, and what happens after the technician leaves the site, and what happens in between,
Yep.
right? So the focus, our focus has always been on when the technician gets on the site and making sure we fix the equipment, and that's very important, right? Fixing the equipment first time, but also there's a lot that goes in between, before and after and in between. So great takeaways, Mitch.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think this is a great wrap to the global supply chain
Updates.
panel.
Yep. Yep.
And then what we want to get into on the next session tomorrow at 9 a.m. is talk about pricing.
That's right. Yeah.
Pricing is the lowest hanging fruit, and it's a powerful lever to pull to increase your profitability, and literally changing your pricing for a few for a few dollars over thousands of transactions can mean the difference between you know buying a new car this year, or saving up for the next 3-4 years to buy it. So it can mean quite a lot, and a lot of people, unfortunately, they don't put a lot of thought into pricing. So I'm really keen to get your insights on that. And
Absolutely.
with that said, give my man Mitch here a shout out in the comments if you're enjoying these tips. He's coming. He went all the way down to Chicago. Went away from his family. Spent a whole 2 days over there to get you these insights, and he's taking time from his day to share these with you. So let's give Mitch a shout out in the comments below, brother. I appreciate you for
Thank
coming
you,
to us with
brother.
all of these insights, and I'm looking forward to our session tomorrow.
Yeah, looking forward to it too. Thank you so much, brother. And thank you everyone for tuning in and listening in. These are super vital updates that I know you don't want to miss out on. Thank you so much.
And there you have it, episode 2 in the field notes with Mitch Galutera. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless.
God bless. Bye bye.